Shalom, family.
Shalom.
The soul food topic on tonight is cremation. I remember someone asking, is it lawful to have your loved one cremated? Okay. And I just wanted to delve into it, bringing out some precepts and see what the scriptures have to say about cremation. Okay. For those who may not know what cremation is, it's when someone dies that you run them essentially through the fire and burn them to ashes. Okay, so we're going to bring out some precepts and see what the scriptures have to say about cremation. Okay, cremation. Gail, can you grab me 2 Maccabees chapter 12, verse 38 and 39? Babakasha.
2 Maccabees what?
2 Maccabees chapter 12, verses 38 and 39. Because I know that cremation is a more cost-effective way to bury or, to have your final wishes with your loved one. But we have to keep the laws and statutes of the Most High, okay, and not just do after the heathen. Esau may cook up grandma and put her in a kiln or whatever, and put her ashes in a vase. That's not for the children of Israel. So go ahead and read that for me.
Okay, 2 Maccabees chapter 12, verses 38 and 39. So Judith gathered his host and came into the city of Adullam.
Mm-hmm.
And when the seventh day came,
Salakia, which is the Sabbath day. Go on.
They purified themselves as the custom was, and kept the Sabbath in the same place.
Okay.
39. And upon the day following.
Salakia, so after the Sabbath day, so they purified themselves on the preparation day, which is Friday, the day before. And they kept and observed the Sabbath day. Once the sun set and they entered into the following day, go on.
And upon the Sabbath day following, at such time the use had been.
Where are you reading it?
It's the way it's worded in my Bible.
Oh. 39? You're reading 39?
Mm-hmm. And upon the day following, as the use had been, Judas and his company came to take up the bodies of them that were slain, and to bury them with their kinsmen in their father's graves.
Okay. So it reads the same way. I just couldn't follow you. I thought you skipped somewhere else. But it's saying the same thing. So the Sabbath day they observed. The day after the beginning of the week, it says that Judas and his fellows went out and found the bodies of those that were slain of his brethren. And what did they do? Did they burn them with fire? No, they buried them in their father's graves. Not meaning the exact same plot, but in that region, in that area. If it was a cave, was this buried? So it wasn't in a cave. Buried them in the same area. Okay, buried them near their fathers. Where their fathers had been buried in times past, they buried these men near them in that region, in that land. Okay. All right, I'll have you grab 2 Ezra chapter 2, verse 23. 2 Ezra chapter 2, verse 23.
Ezra chapter 2 and 23.
Salaki, before you get into it, understand that this is the angel speaking to the prophet Ezra and commanding him on what to do. These are righteous commandments that this angel is providing to Ezra so that he may be perfect in all things. Go on and read.
Verse 23, wheresoever thou findest the dead, take them and bury them, and I will give thee the first place in my resurrection. Makes it plain right there.
If you find any of your brethren that are dead, you are to bury them. If you bury them and do it with a sincere heart and sacrifice, maybe, some of your own expense to make sure they have a proper burial, okay? It said that you will have the first place in my resurrection, meaning that you will have eternal life, meaning that it is a blessing It is a form of almsgiving, if you will. I know the person can't thank you for your almsgiving, but unto their spirit, because you have given their body, their flesh, okay, a final resting place. You don't let their body decay. If you find their body, you perform the custom and you bury them. And we're going to go on and define what the custom is according to our forefathers. All right. So I'm going to read John chapter 19, verses 38 through 42. John chapter 19, verses 38 through 42. And it reads, "And after this, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Yahushua, but secretly for fear of the Jews, besought Pilate that he might take away the body of Yahushua. And Pilate gave him leave. He came therefore and took the body of Yahushua." 39. "And there came also Nicodemus, which at the first came to Yahushua by night, and brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100 pound weight." Okay?
Isn't
Verse 40.
Myrrh?
What did I say? Myrrh?
Mm-hmm.
Myrrh. Salakia. Verse 40. "Then took they the body of Yahushua, and wound it in linen clothes with the spices, as the manner of the Jews is to bury." So this is how our ancient forefathers buried the dead. Now, whether it was in the ground, or whether it was in a cave, or likened unto a cave, a sepulcher, they were bound in linen cloth, and aloes and spices were applied. Okay? This is the manner in which our people were buried. Not burned with fire, but buried in this manner. Now you look at Western culture, how do we bury our dead? We don't wrap them in linen clothes. We don't put aloes and myrrh or any of those wonderful spices on their body. But we leave open casket. Okay? And we bury them as is in the casket in the ground to decay. That's not the way our ancestors did it. Because it says here, as the manner of the Jews is to bury. Okay, verse 41. "Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new sepulchre wherein was never man yet laid." 42. "There laid they Yahushua, therefore, because of the Jews' preparation day, for the sepulchre was nigh at hand." Okay, so either he's buried in the ground, or he's placed in a cave or a sepulchre, which would, naturally be above ground. But in either cases, the body was stored and laid at rest. Okay? You didn't put it up in a tree. You didn't do any of these weird, crazy pagan rituals. Okay? Which you chop up the body parts and do all this weird stuff. But the body was left intact. It was wrapped with linen. The spices were applied, and you were buried. That is how our ancestors took care of the slain, took care of those who passed. This was the righteous way, according to Ezra. If you do these things, you shall have eternal life. You shall participate in the resurrection. Okay? I'm going to go to Acts chapter 5, verses 5 through 10. Acts chapter 5, verses 5 through 10. "And Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and gave up the ghost. And great fear came on all them that heard these things." Verse 6. "And the young man arose, wound him up, and carried him out and buried him." Wound him up. So you see that these young men are aware of the custom, of the manner of our people. They didn't just throw him in a box. Okay, but he was wound up. Maybe they didn't have time to get spices, but he was wound up. Think about Lazarus. When he came forth, when Yahushua called him, he came out bound in linen cloth. And he commanded the men to unloose this man, take the cloth off, so he can see and move and have his, have liberty to move. So this was the custom of our people. Nowhere have we found that it is customary to cremate or to burn the flesh. Okay? Not righteously, that is. And we're going to get into that in a moment. But let me finish this. Where am I at? Verse 7. And it was about the space of 3 hours after, when his wife, not knowing what was done, came in. And Peter answered unto her, Tell me whether ye sold the land for so much. And she said, Yea, for so much. Then Peter said unto her, How is it that ye have agreed together to tempt the Spirit of Yahweh? Behold, the feet of them which have buried thy husband are at the door, and shall carry thee out. 10. Then fell she down straightway at his feet, and yielded up the ghost. And the young man came in, found her dead, and carried her forth, buried her by her husband. So we can assume that she was wound up as her husband was, and placed right next to her husband in the grave. Okay? And they were not righteous, they were wicked, but they still got the same proper burial according to the law of the Israelites. Okay? I'm going to read Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 10. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 10. There shall not be found among you any one that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch. Now we understand that the passing through the fire was a pagan ritual where our people they got it from the Canaanites and from these heathen nations. They would pass their sons and daughters through the fire of Molech to appease the gods, or to appease that particular god. They would sacrifice their children and let them be burned alive to entreat their God to bless them. These were customs that our people were forbidden to participate in. Our people did it anyway. But we were permitted not to follow after the heathen and do these things. Now, I have not looked into the origin of cremation and, where it came about or how it arrived here in Western culture. But I would come to imagine that it had to have some sort of root in these ancient pagan practices. But you have the commandment there. Do not allow, let me read it again. Verse 10. There should not be found among you any one that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire. Okay? And this is the very thing that happens with cremation. When the person dies, they pass their body through the kiln and they're burned until they're made ashes. They collect the ashes and keep it in some sort of receptacle. And then whenever you want to talk to grandma, grandpa, you go up to the vase and say, Hey, grandma, how you doing? That has not been given unto us to do. All right? I'll leave that alone. Gail, I have you grab the book of Judith, chapter 16, verse 17. Judith, chapter 16, verse 17.
Judith chapter 16, verse 17. Woe to the nations that rise up against my kindred. Yahweh Almighty will take vengeance of them in the day of judgment, in putting fire and worms in their flesh, and they shall fill them and weep forever.
So we see that fire was not used as the customary burial technique, but it was used for judgment. Judgment. Those who transgress are judged with fire. That's the only time fire was talked about amongst our people when it came to death. When you were being judged. But not when you simply die. You're not to have your body burned. You're to be buried. That is the proper way according to 2nd Esdras. All right? But when you're being judged, the Most High will bring fire upon you and consume you in that manner. All right, last one, we're going to go to Sarak, chapter 39, verses 28 and 29. Sarak chapter 39, verses 28 and 29.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead and read that.
All right.
Sarak 39, 28 and 29.
28 and 29. Okay. Therefore be spirits that are created for vengeance.
Therefore, there
be spirits that are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes.
Salakia. So we read in Judith how the Most High said he will take vengeance on the heathen and bring fire on them. Fire and worms on their flesh, and they'll feel it. So that was a form of an execution of judgment on the evildoer. So now the writer is saying here in the book of Sarak that there are spirits. Read again, 28. There be spirits that are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes. So there are spirits that are destined or created in purpose to bring forth judgment, to execute judgment. You're going to go on and read what those spirits are.
Ready? Mm-hmm. In the time of destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them. Fire and hail and famine and death, all these were created for vengeance.
Okay, so you see that fire was created for vengeance.
That's scary.
Yeah. As well as hail and death and famine, all these other things. But fire was created for vengeance. It wasn't created as a means to seal death, if you will. Once someone dies and they give up the ghost, the proper burial in the ground or in the cave or sepulcher, that was the proper manner in order to seal their life. As the scripture will go on to say in the books of the Kings or Chronicles, and they slept with their fathers. They were buried with their fathers, buried with their forefathers. Because fire was a form of vengeance. The only people whose flesh are burned with fire are those who are wicked and are appointed unto judgment. Like the judgment for a witch was for her to be burned with fire. Okay? Some of the men, the princes, the 250 princes in the book of Numbers who transgressed, fire came down and incinerated them. Judgment. Okay? So the Most High has not called for fire or cremation to be the way in which, our loved ones, our family, our people were to be, cared for in that way. Okay, we were to be wound up with the linen cloth with spices and buried. Okay, not burned with fire. All right, simple study. Just wanted to break that down, okay?